Welcome back to another episode of Sharpen Your Skills, brought to you by my friends at Redo and Parker. Today, we're going to talk about building an e-commerce operating plan. What is an e-commerce operating plan? Combines two critical elements into one comprehensive document to guide your growth as a business. The first is what's referred to as FP&A, or financial planning. The second is your marketing plan. These things have existed siloed from one another for too long, and the combination to them is critical to the success of the organization. And if you're going to build a great operating plan, anchored in both FP&A and marketing, you must think of it as a two-step process. One is to start with what is likely to occur. This is a data-driven exercise in the present reality of the business, based on an extrapolation of the business's performance to date. The second step is to consider what the shareholders would like to occur. The gap between these things is what the operating plan is meant to resolve, to take you from your present reality to a desired future state. This process begins with great forecasting. Forecasting for e-commerce is a two-part modeling exercise. I refer to it as the revenue layer cake. On the top layer, we have our new customer acquisition. And on the bottom, we have our returning customers. Both layers can be modeled in ways that create a predictive value of your future revenue. Put some candles on our cake here to illustrate the idea. This model often begins with modeling your returning customer revenue. This is the most predictable part of any e-commerce forecasting exercise, is to create a cohort specific LTV model of your future existing customer revenue. You've probably seen a cohort chart where it shows revenue by month over time for each month and each subsequent new set of customers. And what you can do is you can sum the future expectations of all of these cohorts of customers based on the modeled average of month 1 versus month 2 versus month 3 to give you future returning customer revenue. If you export this chart out of your Shopify dashboard and average the growth by month, you'll get a trend line that can help you predict the future value of each cohort. Harder to predict, but still able to be modeled, is the efficacy of new customer acquisition in the future. To do this, I would recommend analyzing the relationship between your AMER, which is a proxy for a acronym for Acquisition Marketing Efficiency Rating. That's new customer revenue over ad spend. So we'll say NC Rev over ad spend. Just think of that as the efficiency of your new customer acquisition on the y-axis. And then you have spend on your x-axis. And what I want you to think about here is to think about, for all the months that you've ever had, there's going to be some point at which you've spent, let's say your max is $1 million over here, or you spent 800 grand and generated some AMER. Likely you spent varying amounts over the history of the business, such that you'll have a scatter plot where there's some relationship between spend and efficiency. Every business has some line that when you run a regression analysis, or if you want to use a very basic average, you can begin to see that if you were to pull a point on this graph where you were to say spend is X, it would create a corresponding plot point Y, such that you could predict the relationship between spend and efficiency in any given period of time. I would recommend that you look at this with a seasonal effects model to understand how these dots change in months like Q4, as an example, where you're likely to be able to get a lot more spend at a lot higher efficiency. But this baseline relationship between spend and efficiency will help you to output an expectation of new customer revenue at various media budgets. All right, I'm interrupting this episode of 4-Quarter Accounting to bring you another way to save money in Q4. In reality, when I do 4-Quarter Accounting, we're starting all the way down here at net sales. But the reality is that there are two silent killers of profitability that exist before we even get to your CAC, OPEX, or cost of delivery. And it has to do with your discount rate and return rate. We know going into Q4, we're going to have to discount. It's an expectation of the customer. But how do we reduce this second one, returns? Well, looking at an example here, gross sales of $1 million, discounts of $200,000, returns at $150,000. That's 17% of your money that's going to discounts. And we've seen it be as high as 30% for some apparel brands. We know in Q4 that can inflate too because you have gifting purchases and other complications related to buying. Well, my friends at Redo have an awesome solution because a lot of times brands have to choose between, do I offer free returns or do I make them pay? Well, if I make them pay, I've seen data that says that 75% of customers say they will not buy, no buy without free returns. So what do? You either get killed in your profitability or you eat it and make the customer dissatisfied. Well, Redo offers you a solution. They enable an automated pay a small coverage fee at checkout. They auto apply it for every customer, and then that enables free returns and exchanges covered by Redo. In addition to that, they also offer you order tracking, support, as well as the ability to handle warranties and processes. So you can combine 7 different vendors from your software into one. You get free returns, and we've seen on average brands save $40,000 by switching to Redo. So combine a bunch of your software stack into one, enable free returns for your customers at a benefit to them at a small coverage fee that's auto-applied at checkout, and you're going to be saving an immense amount of money. And tell them Taylor sent you right now, and you get $100 to Bad Birdie just for watching a demo. I'm here for your margin innovation, another Q4 solution to a big problem, returns. GetRedo.com. Now, combining these elements, you're going to end up with 3 key items to start the likely scenario. You're going to have your new customer rev. You're going to have your ad budget. And you're going to have your returning customer rev. From there, you're simply going to subtract out all of your OPEX and variable expenses associated with the creation of that revenue to get to a forecast. Now, this is a simplified version of this exercise, obviously, as each of these line items have effects that can be modeled and tracked over time. The idea is that you want to start with a financial plan, a full 12-month P&L level forecast that is rooted in an extrapolation of the historical performance of your ad spend and your returning customer revenues to make a prediction about your future revenue. This number is likely going to be in some way dissatisfying to you. Now, maybe the reality is you've been smashing it and this model is actually going to output a result that you really love. But for most businesses, there will be some gap to the scenario that they would like to happen in the coming year. And this is where we have to think about building a marketing, what I call an event effect model, to begin to root the organization in a very important idea. And that idea is that actions lead to revenue. The building blocks of a change in the model is a change in our behavior. A model is useful in so much that the past is similar to the future. If we want to disassociate the future results from the past, we have to change our behavior. And when it comes to e-commerce, the root building blocks of behavior are marketing actions. things like ads, emails, texts, product launches, promotions. All of these actions have a corresponding anticipated future value that can be modeled and used to alter the expectation of revenue. And this is where the P&L forecast meets the marketing calendar. The marketing calendar is home to all of the anticipated actions in every channel every day. I'll say that again. A good marketing calendar in e-commerce contains every action in every channel every day. Okay? Now, there are a lot of businesses that I see that have this, but rarely do businesses have the most important part. A great marketing calendar that can actually affect a planning model on the financial side ensures that every action in every channel and every day has a corresponding expectation of revenue. Every email you send, every campaign that you run, every SMS that you send has to have an expectation of the value that it's going to create. And you can model that. You can look at the relationship of all the emails you've ever created and how they affect and how much revenue they generate to be able to determine how much revenue you're going to generate in the future.
CEOs, I have a question. What is your homepage on your browser? And why is it not your bank account? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because in e-commerce, you have all these really important data sources, like your ad spend, your Shopify account, your email service provider, that all flow into some business intelligence that's likely the homepage for you right now. But the problem is, this tool is very expensive and is actually often siloed from the most important information in your business, your bank account, and ultimately your financial and accounting data. So what happens is you get a siloed, disparate set of information for you to track every day. Well, good news. My friends at Parker are solving that for you. They have turned your banking account into a home for all of the most critical business information that you have in their new analytics from Parker. Finally, one place to view everything from your cash flow to your cohorts to your media performance, all in one critical central home base. Get Parker.com, tell them Taylor sent you, and check out the new home base for e-commerce. Get closer to your money, tear down the wall between marketing and finance. Parker is here to help.
Because this idea that I'm going to show you, again, between this likely scenario and the like to, the bridge is all of these building blocks. You actually have to build in the corresponding actions, the emails, the sales, the product releases, the ad units. Every time you add one in on top of your previous plan, you can assign a dollar value to that expectation that improves either your new customer revenue or your returning customer revenue. At CTC, we call this the event effect model, and we've actually built it such that every time our marketing calendar is intimately integrated to our financial forecast, so that every time we create and plan a marketing event, it actually alters the expectation of future revenue. The end result of this process, when I get from a monthly budget with an expectation of new and returning customer revenue, I then build my marketing calendar, I assign a corresponding action to each of those events that affects my model. The output is I have a daily expectation of revenue, both new and returning, and I have a daily expectation of every action. Now, great. So you have a spreadsheet full of numbers that creates an expectation. That is a great starting point. But here's what I know about this process. all of this awesome work that goes into creating a detailed, specific plan that ladders up to the financial goals of the organization and has every marketing action connected to the revenue. The only thing I know about it is that it will be wrong. All models are wrong, but some are useful. And what makes it useful is it helps to identify where we are wrong so we can course correct. Great forecasting and modeling is an exercise in execution more than it is in modeling.
Also, as part of this episode, comment modeling below, and we'll send you our detailed layer cake guide so that you can more accurately predict your revenue. Now back to the drawing.
The goal here is to create a map that the second you deviate off course, it brings you back. It allows you to go, that email that I thought I was going to send, I had it modeled to generate $1,000. But when it came in as an actual, it was 852. So you know what? That email plan that I have now, I've got a $148 gap to go fill. That means I have to design a better email, send another one, make up for it in ads. The clarity of the miss is actually the opportunity. If you want to build an e-commerce business that produces predictable, profitable growth, we have to marry financial planning and marketing calendaring. We have to begin with what is likely to occur, build a bridge to what we would like to occur, to the execution of clear actions with expectation of revenue. That's an e-commerce operating plan.